Most people think that binge eating is just overeating, and that misunderstanding is the thing that keeps us stuck in this binge cycle. That's why today I wanted to talk about things I wish I knew about binge eating and give you several tools that will help you in a recovery process. So let's get started. First thing I want to discuss is 5 things I wish I knew about binge eating. First is that I thought binge eating was the same as overeating or emotional eating. It is not. Even though binge eating is very closely connected to overeating and emotional eating, those 3 are completely different things from each other, and I will be making video about it because it is very important to know this differentiation between those 3. One thing I would like you to remember from this video is binge eating might involve overeating. It definitely involves emotional eating, but it is not the same thing. Second thing is that I kept trying diets to fix my binge eating, but they made binge cycle worse. I know every single one of us have been on a diet, at least one in our lifetime, and all the diets include one very important thing, which is restriction. Why restriction is very damaging during the binge eating recovery is because it's creating a very good ground for the binge episodes, for this binge cycle to come back or to make it worse. Because with every restriction, your cravings, your desires towards specific foods increase, and every time you are not going in to that craving, your binge episode becomes either more intense, either more intense or longer, or you will have more binge episodes. Third one, I underestimated how much emotions were driving my binges. You know, when you have tried all the diets you heard of, and every time you maybe lose weight, then you gain it back, or you don't even lose weight in the process, and you think, maybe it's not me, like maybe something is wrong because I've been doing everything as textbook says. I am following the plan. Why I cannot lose weight? And one of those moments when the aha moment came and I thought, maybe food is not itself an issue. Maybe something else is happening with me. And first idea was emotions, because I knew I was not able to show emotions the way I wanted. I didn't know. Even when I started working on my emotions, I didn't know that 90% of the work will be about my emotions. And that was one of the biggest breakthroughs, because that third part which helped me lose 30 pounds in just 90 days without being on a restrictive diet or without consistent exercises. I ignored how sleep made me more reactive and more likely to binge. Sleep has been very huge for me because I used to work 24-hour shifts when I was working in a hospital for years. And I didn't know how much it was affecting not only my weight loss process, but all the processes in my body. And I know that we don't always have the conditions which allow us to sleep anytime we want. I started binge recovery when I was still in shift work, and I know how it feels like when you don't have specific times you go to bed and it's chaotic. But I am a living example that it is possible to do. You just need to have correct tools. I didn't see how environment and people around me were shaping my triggers. And I would go deeper and say that they were my triggers, unfortunately. The thing with an environment is that we already have habits associated with it. And those habits are keeping you in the same loop over and over again throughout the years, and it is easier to change the environment and build up new habits than it's to change the habits within the environment. I was able to do that. I think my progress would have been so much faster if I changed my environment completely. Let's go to the interesting part of what I changed. What I changed was that I learned the difference between binge eating traits and binge eating disorder. Binge eating disorder, which is involving specific criteria, and for you to have diagnosed BED, you have to be fulfilling these criteria. Binge eating traits are traits like emotional eating or overeating or having these binge episodes, which don't necessarily mean that you have BED, but that is something that I really want to discuss separately. I focused on emotional awareness. This one was extremely important. First, knowing what are the most common emotions which make you have binge episodes. For that, you just need to document it. Next phase will be to find the ways you can address your emotions without involving food. Third one was I practiced meeting emotional needs without food instead of controlling food. Instead of having this bunch of rules around food that I am allowed to eat cake only if I had my 2 hours of cardio training today. This is rule. It is not helpful, it is not addressing anything, it is a complete restriction, and it always ends up with the binge episode. Addressing emotional needs without food is the way to fix that. For example, why do I want this chocolate cake? Is it because I look at it, it looks and smells great? I know it tastes great. Do I want it just for entertainment? In that case, food will be for entertainment. Am I feeling very sad and I want to have a chocolate cake? In that case, it's fulfilling the need. All the food has a reason why we eat it. Even if you're physically hungry, reason to eat food in that scenario is because you need energy and you cannot have energy if you don't have food. I stopped relying on aggressive diets as the main solution because they only bring more binge episodes with us. How I was able to stop relying on aggressive diets was to write down all the diets I ever tried and write down what were the results I got from them. And if you see them, you have very clear proof that they don't work. The last part is taking sleep and environments seriously. Changing things in environments that don't work for me. I know we all have that. And sleep. Sleep is extremely important. I cannot talk about the value sleep has. It helps us with everything. And since we're already on the topic, if you want support applying any of this in the real life, you should definitely join my Free Skool community. There I share more tools. We have the weekly focus. We have practical steps that help you throughout the recovery process. And it also brings accountability and true support for people who are struggling with binge. What happened after? Why should I make all of these changes? What will be the outcome? Well, let me tell you about the outcome. I had fewer emotional spikes that used to end in binges. I was able to interrupt urges earlier because I understood what they were really about. I started fulfilling those needs with other tools. Food became less of a release volume for emotions I was holding in because I stopped holding in the emotions. I learned how to show them step by step, and I also learned that it was not as scary as I thought. I stopped escalating one hard day into a bigger spiral. Stable, because it was not based on perfect eating, on all or nothing mindset. What I want you to take away from this video will be that binge eating is not just eating too much. For many people, binge eating is a coping mechanism which is shaped by emotions, by sleep, environment, culture, people we are hanging around, and it often gets worse when we try to solve it with just diets. If I was starting this process again, I would start by getting clear of what I'm dealing with. Then I would build two very important steps, which was having the emotional awareness to know what are the emotions that make me binge most often and what are the ways I can regulate those emotions without going to food. Also, if you want the help to implement everything that we talked about today, or you are on the binge recovery or you are already in the binge recovery process and would like more support or just want to talk about it anywhere, feel free to join my free school community. And this was all for today. Thank you for staying this long and listening to me. I hope it was interesting and you received new information which can be helpful in your recovery journey. I will be seeing you tomorrow. Bye.